Hi all, this is Skate, and before we get into this video, I just want to clarify a point. I've been asked a fair few times recently, am I losing interest in the game, or am I losing interest in my channel? The honest answer there is no. During that November-December, part of January period, I didn't post anything. Obviously I posted an explanation for that. I was losing interest at that point. Nowadays, not the case. It's hard to actually explain things in detail without giving up huge details of your personal life. But for those that were concerned, rest assured I can promise you I am itching to get videos pumped out. And I have so many recorded, ready to be done. Check out this shot, by the way. Where did that go? That 640 alpha shot, which we just blocked, gives a little bit of a hint as to what might have been there. But yeah, pressing on with the videos. I'm blocking lots right now. This is the WZ111-1G fake tank. And this is one of those videos I wanted to finish for a while, because this is where this Chinese tank destroyer line changes quite significantly. We've gone from the tier 7 with lots of mobility and no armor. Are you ready for this? I put that on Instagram. Let me just show you again. And the reason I threw this clip on Instagram is because it's one of those what the hell happened shots. Are you ready? How did I hit that ISU? I have absolutely no idea. Did it ricochet off the super Pershing? Did it just go off center and somehow manage to hit that tank behind the super Pershing? I don't actually know, but what I do know is that shot really made me laugh. And pretty much for that reason alone, this Mastery replay was included. Well, no, that's not entirely true. I think this replay actually gave a very nice indication early on what the armor profile on this tank is like. I mean, we're popping around a corner, we were pretty much just showing the upper casement, and we were using the full gun arc to the left, which meant the cheek on the right was very heavily angled, which meant it was very good at bouncing. And that is why this line significantly changes at tier 8. All of a sudden we're starting to lack mobility, which we did have on those lower tier Chinese tanks. And we're starting to make up for that with a bit of a tasty armor profile. And it only gets better when you go up to the tier 9. So I'm just going to break the armor profile down on this a little bit. Starting with the lower plate, it's 120mm. It's not epic, it does the job of being a lower plate. There's not much more you can say on a lower plate. It's a weak point. The upper plates. The upper plate is piked, and it's only 100mm thick. However, due to the aggressive angling on it, you end up with around 170 to 200mm of effective thickness. Now, the pike kind of throws you off guard a little bit. It's often said the pike nose on something like an IS-3, something to that effect, basically is strongest when you are pointing it directly at an enemy. Which is not wrong. You point directly at something like that, you wiggle like mad, and you get a lot of bounces off those pikes because they're very trollish at that point. I do die in this one, fairly obvious at this point now because I'm dead. But if you have this thing exposed in the open, yes, point directly at a target, give it a bit of a wiggle. If you are playing it at a bit of range, then what matters is the upper casement, not the pike. And the reason for that being is because obviously, after talking about only 100mm but very well angled on the upper plates, the upper casement has 180mm of armor on that upper casement on the cheeks. The gun mantlet is 200mm with 180mm behind it. So, in other words, you don't have to worry about that center of the upper casement. It's 380mm without even adding angling. But those cheeks with 180mm is where you can really bait the shots. And the reason for that being is because 180mm, when you're pointing the tank directly at something, gives you around 225mm of effective thickness. In other words, a lot of tier 8s, tier 9s can penetrate it, and tier 7s with premium ammunition. But when you're using the full 12 degrees of gun arc, to the left or to the right, the other cheek starts to become very, very thick. And I mean, you're ranging from 275 to 300 millimeters effective thickness on that cheek. So as an example, if I'm here and I'm poking my gun all the way left, trying to keep my left cheek hidden, then my right cheek is very, very well angled. And vice versa, if I put my gun all the way to the right, hide the right cheek, my left cheek is stupidly well angled. When you're aiming left and right and pointing out from behind rocks, etc., you need to try and take that into consideration with this tank, because it really does make a difference. I mean, when I'm shooting one of these things, I'll always try and go for the upper or lower plates and try and avoid the casement unless they are angled so badly that you can shoot straight through the cheeks. But that's only looking at the armor profile when you're using the gun arc. When you're trying to use the gun depression in this scenario, the armor, it's not as good, but it's still very capable. So, whereas mentioning using the gun arc poking left and right, you can get 270 to 300 millimeters of thickness on the outer cheek. Using the gun depression, your upper casement gives you around 250 to 260 millimeters of effective thickness on the cheeks, and the upper plate pretty much the same. But again, a lot of equal and higher tier tanks can munch through that with premium ammunition. In simple terms, the optimal scenario for this tank is trying to use the full gun arc, hiding one of the cheeks, exposing the outer cheek because it baits the shots, while trying to hide the lower plate and upper plates, in other words the hull. You can't always get that sort of scenario, and if you can't, then you need to try and use the gun depression, and more importantly, try and poke out from rocks, only exposing the one cheek heavily angled. If you're not doing all that, I honestly think the armor on this thing is easy to deal with. But when you are doing that, it really does up the game in terms of the armor on this thing. And then we come on to the gun. Now, I think the gun on this tank is fantastic. Yeah, a part of me kind of went, I wish I had a 152mm pack in 640 alpha shots. But then I started playing with this 130. And obviously it's got 460 alpha shots, which gives you 2,732 damage per minute with consumables and equipment. But what makes this better is the gun handling. 0.308 gun dispersion. That's damn accurate for a gun of this size. And on top of that, it's got a very respectable aim time as well. What that pretty much translates to in my head is a lot of equal tier heavies are going to be farting 122mm shells in your general direction, while you are aiming in quicker and more accurately with a higher alpha shell. Combine that with the fact you'll be trying to maximize your armor, means in my head anyway, more likelihood of my shell going into them than their shell going into me. But that's dealing with lower and equal tier tanks. I think when it comes to higher tier tanks, you need to play a little bit more reserved. Against tier 7s, I'm quite happy just to roll in head first. Against tier 8s, depending on what it is, I'm quite happy to rolling head first, or play medium range, but you certainly don't need to snipe. You can snipe all day long in this because of that aim time and accuracy, and T49 should have moved. But you can play close range because you've got the armor. Medium range I think is best because it means there's less likelihood of hitting those weak spots when you are trying to do what you can to maximize it. Against tier 9s, I think medium range is best, or if it's mostly tier 9s in the game, there's no issue with playing the sniper role because the accuracy will allow you to. But sniping can get boring very quickly, so even if you soften up the tier 9s first, and then go rolling into medium range, and then towards end of play the close range game, because you don't really care as much about your hit points at that point, because you've preserved them. The only thing I haven't touched on in this video so far is its mobility. Now we're getting bigger with our guns, and we're getting a lot more armor than the previous tiers, so we have sacrificed quite a bit of mobility. In terms of straight line speed, it will happily sit at 35 km per hour. But its traverse isn't great. Now what that translates in my head to is you need to go back to basics on the whole turretless tank destroyer and try and make sure you've always got hard cover next to you, because if a light or medium from 7, 8 or 9 comes running in at you, once you've got one shot into them, you are going to struggle to get them off your back once they've got around there. Now obviously the more close range you play, the more risk of that, which probably is why medium is more optimal range on this. But again, that's a basic of turretless tank destroyers, especially if they don't have the greatest traverse. That's not the case with all turretless tank destroyers. For example, the premium tier 8 Chinese tank destroyer, the WZ111-1G. The traverse speed on that, Jesus, I have no worries about being flanked in it. In fact, I need to do a video on this. Tell you what, I'm going to follow up this video with a WZ121-FT video, because I know I've got footage already recorded for it, and then I'll do the tier 9. Because this is a good tank, this WZ111-1G FT Fig tank. That, on the other hand, is a stupidly good tank. It's very hard for anyone to argue it's not OP, because it's blatantly OP. Yeah, I'll tell you what, my next video is going to be on that, because when you go to this and then go to that, yeah, there's a difference. Now again, that's not to say this isn't a good tank. That thing's just broken. This, by the way, in my opinion, is the perfect sort of position for this tank. I'm using the gun depression, I'm hiding the lower plate, I'm hiding the upper casement, I'm using gun arc. I am a very tough target in this circumstance. I'm not sitting still, so if there is a chance of hitting weak spots, they can get at them. I'm popping out, although he does manage to penetrate me, so fair play to him. That was probably the worst timing to be talking about. This is a great position. Yeah, anywho, in that position, you'll find you're not impervious to shells incoming, you're not guaranteed bounces, but the whole point in us trying to manipulate armour, as I've said 1,000 times in videos, is to greatly increase the chances of survival and bounces. You'd be surprised how many people have commented, oh no, it doesn't work for me, I still get penetrated sometimes. It's like, well yeah, you will still get penetrated sometimes. The whole point in this is to increase our chances of bounces. Because I tell you what, as an example, in that sort of position we're in then, if we were versus exactly the same tank who's completely exposed, not trying to manipulate the armour, obviously we're going to survive a lot longer than them. And at this point in the video, there's players with thousands of battles going, yeah, we know this skate, this is obvious. But it's not obvious to all. I was actually pleasantly surprised to see how many new people to the game were commenting on my videos. All in all though guys, the WZ111-1G FT, ridiculously annoying names. Anyhow, I think it was a brilliant tank, and going up the line, each tier I went up I enjoyed more than the last. So if you haven't gone up this line and you're still contemplating it, the line does get better and better. And then getting into tier 9, it gets better again. Honestly, I've really enjoyed this grind. I have grinded every tank in this tier from 75% crew and a stock grind. That reminds me, just as with the last tier, I recommend upgrading the engine and tracks on this thing before you upgrade the gun. I can't remember, I think the engine might already be upgraded from the previous tier. Either way, it's either the engine or the tracks. Upgrade that first, then do the gun, because you can survive with the other gun, no problem at all, but if you can't get around the battlefield or even traverse properly, then it's pointless having a nice big juicy gun. That is it for this video. I hope you have enjoyed it. I promise you it will not be another week until the next video. I'm going to make sure this video is followed up tomorrow with the WZ121-1G FT. But I'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye.